33 is the start of your part 3. So these questions are all worth 4 points now. So they're very important. Okay, so 33 says, write an equation that defines m of x as a trinomial. What you have to remember is that trinomial means that there's going to be 3 terms at the end of your final answer, where m of x equals 3x minus 1 times 3 minus x plus 4x squared plus 19. Okay, what you have to do first is double distribute. So when you double distribute, you'll end up with 9x minus 3x squared minus 3 plus x. And then we can't forget about what we originally had, the plus 4x squared plus 19. Sorry, it's so sloppy. Okay, now what we can do is combine like terms. So let's start with the greatest exponents. So we have a negative 3x squared and a 4x squared. And that just ends up to be x squared. Okay, the next like terms we have 9x, and we have a positive x, so that gives us plus 10x. Okay, and then we have our 19 and our negative 3, and that will end up being a positive 16. So this is what our m of x should equal. Okay, so that's the first part of this question. You need this trinomial. Now solve for x when m of x equals 0. Okay, so all you have to do is set the equation x squared plus 10x plus 16 equal to 0 and solve. You can do this a couple different ways. You could use the quadratic formula, or you could factor and solve for x that way. The quickest way is the factoring, if you remember how, and I'm going to do the factoring method here. So when we factor a trinomial when a is equal to 1, we look to the third term, the c term, and I look at 16 and I say, what two numbers multiply to 16 and add up to our b value of 10? Well, the only numbers that would work would be a positive 8 and a positive 2. So when we go to factor, we always have our x and our x. We're going to have plus 8 plus 2. Now, to actually solve for x, we have to set each parenthesis equal to 0. And now I can just solve for x. So we have a one step over here, subtract 8. So x would equal negative 8. There's one of our roots, and the other, x plus 2 equals 0, subtract 2. And x equals negative 2. There's our other root. So we have negative 8 and negative 2. Okay. On to the next one. Here's 34, and the question reads, a rectangular garden measuring 12 meters by 16 meters is to have a walkway installed around it with a width of x meters as shown in the diagram below. Together, the walkway and the garden have an area of 396 square meters. Okay, so that means the whole entire part is going to equal 396 square meters for the area. Write an equation that can be used to find x, the width of the walkway. Okay, well, using the area formula, we have to remember that area is equal to length times width. Okay, so if we look at the length, okay, so if this part right here is 16, right, so 16 meters, and the width right here of the walkway is x, and over here is another x, then really we have 2x plus 16 as our length. Okay? We need to multiply that by our width. Our width is 12 meters, but we also have to include the walkway. So we have an x and an x. So really, we're going to have 12 plus, remember we have two x's, and that will all equal the area of 396. So that is the equation that you would need to use to find x. Describe how your equation models the situation. Okay, well, in order to describe that, we could say that your area is equal to length times your width. Okay, and the length of the garden and the walkway is going to be represented by 2x plus 16, and the width is represented by the 12 plus 2x, and the area is represented by the 396 square meters. So determine and state the width of the walkway in meters. So I don't really have room to show you all of my work, so I'm going to have to erase a few things so that I can just write it on the sides here, hoping it will fit. Okay, so when you double distribute, okay, and then you combine your like terms, what you will end up with is the trinomial 4x squared plus 56x minus 204 equals 0. So I double distributed, and I obviously had to subtract 396 so that everything could equal 0, because you cannot solve for x here until your trinomial set equal to 0. Okay? So now it's going to be very hard for me to factor this. So what I'm going to do is use the quadratic formula. Okay? And when I plug into the quadratic formula, I'll end up with negative 56 plus or minus the square root of 56 squared minus 4 times 4 times negative 204. And it's all over 2 times my a value, of 4. Okay. This is getting sloppy. All right, so let's erase this so I have room. Hopefully you already wrote that down. Okay. What you'll end up with is negative 56 plus or minus the square root of 6,400 all over 8. Okay? And this simplifies to negative 56 plus or minus 80, because the square root of 6,400 is just 80 all over 8. So you'll end up with an answer of 3 and an answer of negative 17. But we're talking about the width of the walkway. You can't have a negative 17 as a width. So what you need to do is you need to reject the negative answer. So your answer is really 3 meters is the width. Okay? So 3 is your final answer. And that little m is just for meters. Okay. All right. So the last one that we have is question 35. And this says, Caitlin has a movie rental card worth $175. After she rents the first movie, the card's value is $172.25. After she rents the second movie, its value is $169.50. After she rents the third movie, the card is worth $166.75. Okay, so assuming the pattern continues, write an equation to define A of n, the amount of money on the rental card after n rentals. So here we have a sequence. And what we need to look at is where we're starting. So let's just say A of 0. So that's just going to be our starting value. So this is before she rents anything. she has $175, okay? And then next in the list, after one movie, she ends up with $172.25, okay? And then the second movie, she ends up having $169.50, okay? And then by the third, $166.75. And if we look, each time she is losing, okay, minus $2.75, okay? All right, so this is an arithmetic sequence, right? Arithmetic is you're either adding something consecutively or adding even a negative number consecutively. Geometric would be if it was a multiplying factor. So this is arithmetic sequence, and it says, assuming the pattern continues, write the equation to define a of n. Okay, so our equation should start off by saying a of n equals, and it's going to start off with your original value, the 175. Okay, and then because we're subtracting 275 each time, we're going to subtract 2.75, and then we're going to multiply $2.75 by n, the number of rentals. So there's our equation. It says Caitlin rents a movie every Friday night. How many weeks in a row can she afford to rent a movie? Using her rental card only. Explain how you arrived at your answer. Okay. So if we take our original value of 175, right, and we divide it by how much each movie is going to cost us, $2.75, we end up with a decimal 63.6364. Okay, so that means that because she's only renting this one movie every week, it's going to be about 63 weeks for her that she can rent a movie, right? She can't go over 63 weeks, otherwise she won't have any money left on her rental card. So, to show this, we're going to just test it into our equation. So a of 63, we're going to check. So when n is equal to 63, we have 175 minus 2.75 times 63. Okay, so we end up having $1.75 left on her card. Okay, so obviously she wouldn't have enough money to rent another movie. So your answer is 63 weeks. That's how many weeks in a row that she can afford to rent these movies. Okay? All right, and I believe that's the last one. Yep. Okay.